I'm your host, Aaron Dykes, on the InfoWars Nightly News. Now, we talked before about the escalating police state, and unfortunately, there's just more and more evidence of it. As we go into that, I want to remind you in our daily quote of the words of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and that is that those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. And we turn now to our news and see that this is in fact surely happening, because new microchip knows your location to within centimeters. That's on new smartphones, a new chip they're going to be putting in there. Forget the chip on your forehead.
Regardez-moi ça. Ah, il est beau, il n'y a pas à dire. L'orgueil du Troisième Reich. Le brave sergent café au lait qui porte le petit déjeuner à ses hommes. Oh. La race des seigneurs qu'ils appellent ça. Eh ben, mon cochon.
Profond de la nuit, il ne faut jamais désespérer. Gardons notre foi intacte, inébranlable. Pour chacun de nous, la délivrance approche.
Les Français parlent aux Français. Voici notre 8e bulletin d'information. Veuillez écouter tout d'abord quelques messages personnels.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
That's why the dungeon keeper globalists, everywhere they go, love abusing children, having giant prisons packed with people, solitary confinement, torture, and then factories. Those prisons are factories to release people that have been turned into criminals. But it's more importantly about carrying out that evil, enjoying that torture, that satisfaction that dark and wicked people get, that endless energy they have to commit crimes against humanity. And that's what we stand against. A great storm is coming. If you think the stuff you've seen is bad, it's just the forefront of it. The real center of it has not even gotten to us yet. The true maelstrom or squall. And we are facing a dark age. I mean, the language is imploding. The culture is in deep trouble, as you can see everywhere. Degeneracy of every type is just expanding rapidly. Facebook is pushing sites that have been complained about for years, you know, just pushing vile stuff. And it just shows the globalists are force-feeding us cultural death, so we'll stand down and go into this horrible social engineering. And again, I've developed the research that already been done by other historians and anthropologists, but integrated it you have inbred elites who inbreed and become psychopathic and sadistic, which is some of the byproducts of interbreeding. And then you add in the formation the across-the-board syphilitic nature of worldwide elites in the last 300 years. I mean, syphilis was in almost every elite family, in almost every male, and most of the females. And you literally have psychopaths with syphilitic brains developing the New World Order strategy set up in Europe 160 years ago, centered in London. And now you understand why this is so insane and so crazy. Syphilitic inbred brains came up with this and bought the best and brightest scientific minds to implement the plan. So basically what we're seeing implemented is a nightmare of inbred syphilitic individuals. And that's why it's so off the charts. And non-inbred, non-psychopathic or sadistic people are blind to it. And I've given you this analogy many times to dodo birds. The sailors, a lot of times who'd run out of food, starving, they pull up on the island out in the middle of nowhere, and there's these big, fat, juicy birds running around who'd never seen humans, and they just would walk right up to the sailors. The sailors would club their heads and barbecue them. And that's basically what Westerners are like. We went through all this tyranny, all this corruption. People fought for basic liberties. It developed, it flowered, it created wealth. We became decadent. And now, they're like, yeah, we're building camps for you. We're going to torture you and force labor you, slave labor. That's freedom. And yeah, we're watching you. And yeah, we're setting up checkpoints on the highways. And, oh, Alex, you think you won't fly to get away from TSA? They've announced they're in Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. They're coming here. They're like, we're going to set up checkpoints. And if you go to a public event where you drive down the highway, we're going to pull you over. We're going to search your vehicle. And we're going to touch you. This is a sacrament to us. We're going to show you we rule. We're in control. And it's just old-fashioned. We're getting in your space. It's happening. And that's getting you ready to be arrested and put in the trucks. And they now admit that. And they'll do that after they blow up some stuff and pose as saviors. And, that's down the road. They want to roll the camps out first as for the homeless people in the Depression, as we said they would. The Emergency Centers Establishment Act breaks that down. But all of you that think you're serving this and think it's cute, because I run into yuppies that go, so what if all that's going on? I'm having a good time. You think you're getting ahead? No, you're not. You have turned your back on humanity. You are the manifestation of a rotting, imploding society.
Attention, attention. American forces are here to help. Remain calm. We will not tolerate civil disobedience.
Before we go to break, it's gut check time. I told you that they were developing a secret program to arrest political dissidents in this country. They were training the military and police for urban warfare and pacification of the citizens and takeover of government. I've been telling you this for 15 of my 17 years on air. I learned about this when I got on air because police and military contacted me who were patriots and said, do you know this is going on? Now, all of it is out in the open. But none of it is breaking through and becoming a mainstream media issue. We need to force this information out because there's an acceleration, the likes of which I've never seen, in the buildup towards implementation of what you will call, or what I would call, a hot martial law. We've been in the beginning stages, the Cold War buildup of this giant system. But if I had a graph here in front of me to dead reckon it going back to the mid-1990s, and this covert program of military behind the scenes with police and surveillance and all this, it was down here slowly growing, okay? And you get up to 2001, it starts skyrocketing, and now the graph goes about 300 feet in the air. The last 15 years or so, it only goes a few feet and starts going up. And now it's just like a rocket. So they're accelerating this, pouring billions a month into it, getting the prison guards ready. The purchase orders are all public. And it's the same plan they hatched in the 80s to arrest political dissidents and put them in camps. And now we learn it's re-education of conservatives, libertarians, patriots, people that don't want world government. but it'll be across the board, anti-war activists, you name it. So here is a clip from Rex 84 section in Police State 4, total enslavement, with Oliver North being questioned about it in Iran-Contra.
Up on screen are photocopies of the Miami Herald, and this goes back into the 1980s, when they had congressional hearings dealing with shadow government and martial law. There's the headline, The Secret Government. And it talks about secret summits, a plan to take over the government. And it shows the people that were in charge of the continuity of government, Dick Cheney and others. And then we have a congressional hearing where we have Congressman Jack Brooks and others during Iran-Contra bringing up the secret plans, and they're told by Congressman Inouye that can't be discussed. It's a national security issue.
In the 1980s, the concentration camp program got a big boost.
Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster?
Mr. Chairman. I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that, sir.
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution. And I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. I believe that it was,
may I most respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, I'm certain arrangements can be made for an executive session.
And tragically, the only member who got close was Jack Brooks, and he was stopped by the chairman. But the truth of the matter is that, yes, you do have those standby provisions, and the plans are there, and the statutory emergency plans are there, whereby you could, in the name of stopping terrorism, apprehend, invoke the military, and arrest Americans.
So when we see the new documents coming out about re-education, torture, slave labor, that is unprecedented. But it's all part of a system whose roots are more than, well, 3 decades old. And it's time for people to realize we're in grave danger. We always knew this takeover would happen during a controlled economic collapse, the verge of new giant wars. Now is the time to get this information out, because if we expose it, they're not going to be able to roll it out later when they stage the crisis. I mean, they talk about how they're going to suppress people speaking out politically in the camps and how dangerous it is for us to speak out. Use the power of free speech we have now while we still have the internet. They got the cybersecurity takeover of the web, all this unfolding right now. They're moving on every front to clamp down right now because they know we have power. They know we're aware of their criminal activities. They know that we're waking up. If we didn't have power, they wouldn't be trying to set all this up. We have a chance to turn this back. Most of the military I talk to is awake. Most of the police I talk to are awake or waking up. That is encouraging, but that only means the globalists are going to accelerate their timetable. Next up, we have 2 FEMA camps from Police State 4. We also cover FEMA camp admissions for anybody out there who is in denial about this. But not only are the camps now admitted, these are re-education camps where they torture you and use you as slave labor. I want to be clear about the slave labor part.
In 1986, under Rex 84, they opened 12 secret Army camps to test if they could keep them secret while they held federal. Now they hold state prisoners as well. Federal prisoners would then be given a few years off their sentence if they agreed to not tell family about it and to go to the labor camps. It is a labor camp. And under the revised military rules, it allows any U.S. citizens to be put in it under forced labor. Here is the Civilian Inmate Labor Camp Program, Army Regulation 210-35. It's exactly 30 pages long. I suggest you Google civilian inmate labor camp program. Even if you don't have a computer, go to the library. This is important. Now, this is the big piece of news. This is to establish setting up prison labor camps, negotiations with correctional systems representatives to establish prison camps, governing criteria, civilian inmate labor camps, policy statement, governing provisions for operating civilian inmate prison camps on Army installations, procedures for establishing a civilian inmate prison camp on Army installations, infrastructure, inter-service, interagency, and interdepartmental support agreements, working with local police at the FEMA camps. In 2002, I published my book, Descent into Tyranny. I've been covering it since 97 when it was declassified, but I put it in my book, Descent into Tyranny. This sucker was set up in 1986 at 12 camps. It's since doubled to 24. And from 86 to 97, secretly at labor camps, U.S. citizens, non-military prisoners, were worked on FEMA camps. Now, this was beta testing. They would tell them, you'll be given leniency and only serve half your sentence if you agree to labor. The minute you don't, you'll be sent back on these military bases, but you can't tell anybody national security. See, they were testing, can we keep camp secret from local police or get them to work with us? Can we keep camp secret from the media? So for 11 years, they kept this sucker secret. Reagan, Bush, Clinton. And then Clinton declassifies it and says it's a good thing in 97, and they double the number. We had secret copies of this when I first got on air in about 95, 96, with just the cover sheet of it, and people made fun of us and didn't believe it. Then it was declassified. This is from Army.mil. So here it is, the big kahuna. This is just one section of these, training the troops, training the infrastructure, creating the larger cadres to expand the archipelago of gulags. New legislation authorizes FEMA camps in the United States. And it says 6 major camps across the country with hundreds of sub-region camps. Now, if you watch my films and read the documents we put out, that's exactly what we said the camps are and how they operate, because we reverse engineered all this. The camps are already built. It's when they want to openly announce they're doing it that they then pass a law. And they say, oh, all these shut down military bases that they've been keeping refurbished and putting barbed wire facing in and putting in showers and bunks, and we knew that those were to be the FEMA camps, because in the FEMA documents and the congressional leaks and from people that worked at the camps, we knew, and we would list the camps. Then we noticed when it was declassified in 97 that the very camps that had been, quote, decommissioned under the base closure, because they'd said back in the 80s under Rex 84 they were going to use the camps in Congress. So we said, you want to know where the camps are? They're old military bases, and they're old POW camps from Italians, Germans, and Japanese.
Now, here's some more clips of the police and military doing checkpoints around the country to condition the public for military occupation, which the Stars and Stripes and Army Times admits is now being established to suppress the American people, along with their pot-bellied shock troops, the TSA.
Whether it's terrorism, riots, or any major disaster, local agencies will be the first to respond. That's why Roanoke City wants its disaster training to be as real as possible. Jeremy Butterfield has more.
It's supposed to look like a riot, and the scene at William Fleming High School had all the elements.
I'm one of the rioters that the guard and the police force had to take down and arrest, and did very successfully.
In this scenario, everyone has a role to play. The rioters were ready to fight back as Roanoke Police, Roanoke Fire, local National Guard troops, and members of the Virginia Defense Force secured perimeters and moved in to make the arrests.
Prior to 9/11, these organizations couldn't communicate and did not work together. They worked to support each other, but not together.
And with the recent events of the last 3 to 5 years, we've become very good at working together, which is very important.
You bet. Now, we played the clip earlier of you on a local news station talking about Army checkpoints. The governor found out, thanks to you and others, and canceled it. Can you just in a nutshell tell us exactly, specifically what was going on?
Yes, I can. First of all, I have got to check. Now, I don't have concrete facts, but I don't think the military has, first of all, any jurisdiction to be checking seatbelts. When you look at the fact of a military unit being out, your daughter, my wife, or someone driving through a roadblock with all of these local officials, the Army and everybody out there, I think it's just going to scare people to death. I think our local and state officials have the staff when needed to check seatbelts, to do a seatbelt check without the Army getting involved. And I just don't think it's a good idea.
Well, obviously, sir, I don't know if you've heard, but yes, it still violates Posse Comitatus. They haven't completely removed that 1878 law. We know in Mexico and communist China, they have troops on the streets. This is a sign of a banana republic, of a third world police state. So that we don't want that. But the larger issue here is that they've announced Homeland Security wants to put 20,000 regular Army troops to patrol America. The Naval War College, the Army War College has said their new job will be engaging us, combat with the American people to stop an insurrection against the banks. So, A, are you aware of that? B, can you tell us specifically what units, how why the Army was going to be out running checkpoints?
Well, I got this news late on Friday, and when I got the news, I immediately jumped on it to try to call some local authorities that I knew first to see what was going on. And when I made the call, I found out at that point in time that the governor had already made the decision to cancel this, in which I was very proud of that. But I am not aware of Homeland Security doing this. I did hear that they would be involved in this roadblock issue on last Friday.
So that's part of the preparation. Guardsmen to conduct urban training at Arcadia in April. This is going on scaled back now. It says in this article, going door to door asking if they can search homes looking for weapons. And they practice raiding the local gun shop. And this is for domestic operations. Lieutenant Colonel, I really appreciate you coming on such short notice, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
You bet. I saw this article out of the Daily Times Herald in Carroll, Iowa. Have you seen that?
I sure have.
And it's telling us about an urban warfare drill to be held in several towns. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. It's actually a planned training event to provide our soldiers with greater proficiency at what we call coordinate search, which is a mission that, just for a little background, we've deployed nearly 13,000 members of the Iowa National Guard in the global war on terror. And the vast majority of those have been in Iraq and Afghanistan. And one of the missions that they perform in Iraq and Afghanistan on multiple occasions is coordinate search, where basically you are trying to get to an area, coordinate off to make sure everything's safe, and then actually search for caches of weapons or other kinds of contraband which could harm American forces and other
like Fallujah, what we saw in Fallujah.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Exactly. So because of where we're located in Iowa, there are no active duty bases in Iowa, so we kind of have to create our own urban training environments. So the plan on this particular training event was to actually use a small town of about 450 people. The town has actually kind of adopted the unit, which is called Company A, 1st Battalion, 168th Infantry, and they were more than willing to participate in the exercise.
Going through this article, I mean, explaining exactly what they're going to do door to door with the houses, what the checkpoints are going to be simulating.
Sure. When you're talking about coordinate search operations, you've got several different rings of security that you've got to provide in a particular area. And then it's important that people are treated respectfully as you go house to house, as you're looking for certain items, particularly in our experience in Afghanistan and Iraq, looking for weapon caches, whether those have AK-47s, RPGs, rocket propelled grenades, that is, any kind of ammunition or any kind of improvised explosive devices, et cetera, et cetera. And our job, when we go on a coordinate search, is to locate those kinds of items. And then there might also be persons of interest that we're interested in, that coalition forces want to talk to or apprehend.
Well, let's just boil it down to this. I have video of Army and Marines with role players screaming, "I'm an American, please don't put me in the camp," and the military training to confiscate their firearms. I mean, certainly you've heard the Army Times and the new directive from Secretary of Defense Robert Gates that they will use the National Guard under federal control for civil insurrection. Are you saying you're not aware of that?
No, I'm certainly aware of that, absolutely. But I think you have to look at the role of the National Guard historically. Is that historically we are used in states for disasters overwhelmingly. And our job is to, number one, be ready for our mission federally, which is to go to war. And number two is to help our fellow citizens here in the United States of America.
The Kentucky National Guard was part of the massive security force required for this weekend's Kentucky Derby. Officials say that 360 Guard members were on hand at Churchill Downs to help support law enforcement efforts for the first leg of horse racing's Triple Crown. Now, the troops took care of crowd and traffic control, provided 3 choppers and crews for aviation support. Officials at the track said that more than 150,000 fans turned out for the race. Police only had to make 44 arrests.
Did you notice that little report at the end? Oh, the troops are at the Kentucky Derby, running out on the field, stopping people that jumped on the field, as is the tradition for over 100 years. And every year before that, for the last 5 or 6 years, and the years after that, I watched the Kentucky Derby last weekend. And my parents come over, we cook hamburgers and watch it. We like horses, we don't bet. But it is an interesting spectacle and an American tradition. And, you know, we're evil Americans, so we like it. And they had troops just lining everywhere. And when they have the NFL draft, they go, and here come the troops. It's all about getting you used to just military everywhere. And it's everywhere you go, every show, radio shows, grocery stores. I went to the YMCA this weekend, and it's just all these big posters up about the troops, you know, what's going on in YMCA news. And all 3 panels were the troops, the troops, the troops. Not to actually support the troops, but so the system can say, give your rights up, the troops want it, the troops are going to have a checkpoint for your DWI. Hey, you're not against the troops, are you? So the system can sell the takeover of America and attach it to patriotism when the globalists could care less about the troops. Just amazing. Another clip here is the troops confiscating guns in Katrina, going into the high and dry areas, breaking into the nice houses, putting people in handcuffs, blowing off the doors of their safes, and taking their firearms. All the guns will be taken. No one will be allowed to be armed. And the troops passed with flying colors. They confiscated the guns under FBI command. So in case any of you are in denial about this, here is that report.
And then we have the first time the Army got called into New Orleans, going to the high and dry areas with the police and FBI. All the weapons will be taken. No one will be allowed to be armed. And then putting people in handcuffs that had guns, taking their guns.
Today in New Orleans, they got a lot tougher on the holdouts.
Police department, everyone home!
Not only the flooded areas, but New Orleans' driest and wealthiest neighborhoods, too.
Police department!
The police and National Guard going street by street, house to house.
We need to make sure, too, that whenever we knock on doors, people refuse to leave. We need to make note, call it in.
They say there are no orders to use force, just strong persuasion, sometimes entering open houses with guns drawn, and instructions to disarm anyone inside.
You say guns will be taken? No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons.
That happened today in this wealthy neighborhood where homeowners had armed themselves to protect their mansions. Residents were handcuffed on the ground. In the end, police took their weapons but let them stay in their homes.
They were a little bit threatened because our weapons were bigger than their weapons.
For many of the police and guard troops, it is an uncomfortable job to do this in an American city. This guard unit occupied a church, using it as a base camp. They had to leave a note because they could not get hold of the pastor to get permission.
It is surreal. Yeah, you never expect to do this in your own country.
Brigade Homeland Tour starts October 1st. 3rd Infantry's 1st BCT trains for new dwell time mission. Helping people at home may become a permanent part of active Army. And then you read this, the Washington Post reported it, everybody else did. It says for riot control and civil unrest during a collapse of society. Then the Army War College came out a month later and said, yes, we're preparing to engage the American people. So there's that going on. So they have to have troops to take you to the FEMA camps. Washington Post, 20,000 more U.S. troops to be deployed for domestic security. They then expanded and said it won't be 4,000 troops, it'll be 20,000. Now they're saying, oh, it'll be 40,000 regular Army troops. The very troops that were in Baghdad doing gun confiscation, the very best troops they've got. Cool, here's another one. Marines admit security force to operate inside U.S. This directly from the Marine Corps' own website. And they did it with role players, practicing confiscating people's guns. Here's another one. Unit learns skills to fight different enemy. And this is out of the American Force Press Service.
Now, this next clip is so incredibly important because a year and a half ago, I sent our reporters, Rob Dew and others, to Chicago for an urban warfare drill where the local police and military worked with troops from Poland and other Eastern European countries. And the role players were Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and school kids that took part of this. And they also had a drill taking them to the local sports stadium. I also sent McBreen and others out last year to Denver, where they practiced taking the children under FEMA to the local sports stadium during an emergency. So the system is training you to live under a martial law. And now in Chicago, for the NATO summit, all over the city, they're going to have naked body scanners and are saying, you have no Fourth Amendment, we're going to grope you on street corners. Again, they use all these special events. Now when there's a parade, they say they're going to grope people. Or when you try to go to a high school football game or high school proms, they have TSA groping or TSA trained people. As if, well, the TSA are here, they're allowed to wave a wand. I mean, they don't even pass a background check. That's why they're holy. So they're allowed to do all this to you. I mean, look at all their pedophilia and other crimes. I mean, they're God. They get to suspend the Bill of Rights. That's what's happening here. So here we have a clip of the troops training to pacify the American people, foreign troops. Here it is.
I'm Captain Joe Bright. I'm the program manager for the SURF-P program for the Illinois National Guard. I'm here with Major Lejak from the Polish Epidemiological Response Center of the Polish Armed Forces. We're here participating in a Homeland Security exercise. We'll be working on military support to civil authorities as part of a terrorist scenario where they have a biological weapon. Major Lejak and the Polish Armed Forces have a partnership program with the Illinois National Guard. We do cooperative training and exercises, and it's been very beneficial to both of our services in helping us develop our capabilities. The exercise today and what you'd expect to see will be some terrorist scenarios in which there are multiple casualties. We'll have search and extraction team that will be extracting casualties from different facilities. Those personnel that are extracted would be contaminated, potentially with a biohazard. So we'll have a mass casualty decontamination team that will decontaminate them, and then we have a medical triage and treatment team that will provide medical care to them before they're moved by ambulance, if necessary, to a hospital or other type of long-term care facility. You'll see National Guard cooperating with civilian authorities. Typically when we respond, we only fall under a civilian incident commander because we're in the States. We respond to their needs, their requests. We're basically a force provider and bring specific skills to the table to assist local law enforcement and civil authorities in providing the services and protection to the people in their areas.
My name is Major Emil Lishak. I'm from the Epidemiological Response Center of Polish Armed Forces, and we are here with my soldiers to make a next step in our cooperation with soldiers from Illinois National Guard. This cooperation started 5 years ago. Last year we had a big exercise in Poland, near Warsaw, and this year we have a great opportunity to participate in exercise in Chicago. That's a partnership between Illinois National Guard and the Polish. The state of Illinois is a partnership for Poland. So we have good connections, and this is a reason why we train together from 5 years. So here it's 12, and the second group is 10, and they are designated to a civil support team in another place. So we are divided to do groups to learn as much as possible.
Okay, and is it just Polish Army, or are there other forces?
Yeah, we have also participants from our Ministry of Interior, from Fire State of Poland, and from Polish FBI, and there are also another group from police.
Do you have American forces in Poland? Do you do exercises with them there?
Actually, now we have American soldiers, but they have no connections with us, because there is special forces, another kind of forces. But we had at least 3 exercises together with our colleagues from Illinois National Guard during last 4 years.
Okay. Pretty big exercise, probably 60 Boy Scouts down there with their scoutmasters and whoever else wanted to come along. Notice they have them lying face down in the anthrax powder.
It's a very real-life situation.
Everyone lie down in the anthrax powder. I'm gonna move you.
Hostages, you are expendable. Please put your face directly in the powder.
Right. Yeah, all of a sudden the Polish BOA is participating in this exercise, which they didn't mention at all before that. It was just they're here to observe. Hey, it's BOA, Bureau of Operational Anti-Terrorism. So I don't know. This was a hard one to swallow. Watching these guys training with the Boy Scouts. It definitely looks like acclimation. Then you've got Boy Scouts, which are kind of your perceived civil leaders in the community, being trained. This is what it's like to be a hostage. This is what it's like to be a prisoner.
Well, and really, if you think about it, the Eastern Bloc countries are probably used to situations that are somewhat like this. But who is this acclimation for? Is it for the Polish? Is it for Americans to get used to foreign voices telling them what to do?
You saw the end of that report, didn't you? The Boy Scouts training to take on disgruntled veterans. In case you're in denial, all over this country, they're training the Explorer Scouts to take on the American people right out of Nazi Germany, right out of Soviet Russia. This is classic authoritarianism being set up in this country, and it's being done because criminals have hijacked the nation. You ignore this information at your intense peril. As for me, I want liberty, and I am standing up against this. And I'm not standing up against it in some futile effort. I've studied history. We have a good chance of beating this if you get involved and get aggressive in the info war, decrying this police state and this militarization of our country, and pointing out that it's authoritarianism and it's not being done to keep you safe. That's why we've got to expose the fact that almost all terror is government-sponsored and staged so they can pose as our saviors.
Many men won't see the in the